What's the best property type to buy here in Dubai? A question which I'm getting asked a lot of times, and honestly it depends. It depends on various factors because Dubai offers all sorts of opportunities, from apartments to villas to land ownership and plots. And each one of those segments comes with its own advantages and disadvantages, and obviously we need to understand the risk-reward ratio, we need to understand the time horizon and the strategic use case. And this is why this video is so important for you to watch it till the end, because I'm going to decode this overall myth, this question, what to buy here in Dubai, and you will see, if we compare these three segments with each other, that it completely depends on your specific objectives and goals, which one to choose. So with that being said, let's get straight to the point and let's hop into the topic. Alright, now before we're going to compare these three different segments with each other, let's first understand a couple of important metrics to identify, do we go for the apartment, for the villa, or for the plot. And one of these metrics is, in the first place, understanding the behavior of the asset class. So here, we're looking into the history, and that gives us a clear estimation of the expected performance. So what I mean by that is the following. We use tools like Property Monitor, DXP Interact, because these allow us to look into the transactions of the last 3 years of a 3-bedroom apartment in a certain community. And we can see exactly the price trajectory, the history, and as well as the rental contracts. We can see what's the average rent for a 3-bedroom in that community, and then we compare it to off-plan, and then we can see exact rental yields onto the off-plan price, okay? So depending on the objective, which is the next part, identifying, understanding the objective, and let's say your main goal, your main objective with the investment is to have a steady and stable rental yield. We can use the metrics and the data of the history of that particular community, okay, and we can project it onto the future. Then we can calculate, have we actually a realistic chance of achieving that particular target, which is great. Number two, the goal could be the capital growth. So someone is approaching me, let's say with $5 million, and he wants to have at least 8 to 10% capital growth every single year. Then I have a certain strategy, and I will choose and pick certain properties, okay, with certain metrics. And number three, someone is approaching me with the goal of money protection. If that's the case, I'm choosing complete different assets, right? Because money protection is a long-term game. He's not planning to liquidate these assets in the next 18 months, for example. And this is why I can select a complete different tier and segment of the real estate industry here in Dubai. The next part is then obviously the exit strategy. And here I'm speaking about specifically who, okay, is the target buyer afterwards in the secondary market. If you're buying a property in off-plan and you want to liquidate the asset, you obviously need to find a secondary buyer. So we need to identify and understand that in the first place, who is buying off that property with a premium of 30-50% or whatsoever. Number two is the resale time window. This is super important as well. Like, what's the average time from we list the property till we have it completely sold, okay, the contract is done? What is the average time window? We should know that in the first place as well. And last but not least is obviously understanding and evaluating the undervalued locations. So here, we're looking out for gold mines. What are the future gold mines? Where should we put our money on? And these are the metrics which you need to understand in the first place. Let's start with category number one, which are the apartments. And here we need to differentiate a bit because we have different tiers and different categories of apartments. Number one is for me the classic 1 to 3 bedroom apartment, because here we're speaking about a product which is perfect for stable and robust rental yields, because people all the time need to live somewhere, and the broad majority of people, of residents who are living in Dubai, they're living in these kind of apartments, 1, 2 and 3 bedroom, okay? We can potentially add the 4 beds as well, but this is the overall category which I'm speaking of. Number two are the branded residences. The branded residences, I'm speaking about hospitality brands, number one, and number two, I'm speaking about more of the ultra luxury category, okay? Brands like Dorchester Collection, Four Seasons, Ritz-Carlton, and so on. And because there is such a strong association with the brand, that leads to the fact that we have a global demand, limited supply, and that limited supply leads to a very strong capital appreciation, capital growth, okay? Number three is the segment, the category of penthouses / sky mansions / sky villas. Different developers have different names for them, and these are the typical trophy assets, right? Because there are very few in a building, so in most of the buildings there's 1 or maximum 2 penthouses, depending on the structure of the developments. These are perfect products, okay, which combine prestige and lifestyle, and obviously I only recommend them for long-term holds. These are not products which you can flip immediately. By looking into a couple of facts, we immediately see that apartments are the most liquid part of Dubai's real estate, okay? That leads to a shorter resale window, which is super important to get in and out very fast, number one. Number two, speaking about the yields, I just mentioned 6 to 10% here when it comes to the average rental yield. Now, obviously, that can go beyond the 10% in terms of short-term rentals in very prime locations with a high demand, okay? And there are some cases, or like a lot of cases with villas, for example, when we're speaking about 4 or 5% rental yield, which is still more than, for example, in London, or for example, in very, very big major hotspots around the globe, okay? And this is what we have to understand when it comes to rental yields. This is just an average, what I mentioned here. Now, number three is then the approximate appreciation. And here I'm speaking about 5 to 8%. This is a number which I'm using here, which is quite conservative because properties which I'm choosing oftentimes appreciate 10, 15, 20% per year, but it completely depends on the market condition. And I'm thinking long-term, 5, 10, 15 years, and not every single year is as growing as the last 24 months here in Dubai, for example. And that's why I'm a bit more conservative with 5 to 8%. Now, the next point is then the fast entry and exit, which I already mentioned, due to the fact that we're having a lower ticket when it comes to the price bracket, okay, a higher affordability, okay. And then obviously the resale flexibility. Now we're having the widest pool of buyer which actually want apartments, which can afford apartments, and therefore again here the fact of getting in and out is very fast and very easy. When it comes to the investment timeline, I mentioned here 2 to 4 years, okay, which is perfect to use the whole cycle of the appreciation and to get the best and the maximum out of the overall investment. Category number two are the villas. And here we need to differentiate again, because in the first place we have in the overall housing segment the townhouses, okay, as well as the semi-detached villas. And these are products which are connected either on one wall or on both walls with another house. So the privacy factor is not as high as, for example, with a standalone villa, okay? And if we compare these types of products, one is the so-called entry-level villa. And I like to mention here that these products are very community-focused. A perfect example here is the Maple part of Dubai Hills Estate, or for example, the Valley. We have the Avina as a product for the semi-detached villas. These are quite interesting. When it comes to the standalone plot, we're speaking about a standalone single plot. So a higher level of privacy and security and space. Obviously, this is super important here, space, privacy, okay? And the capital appreciation potential is enormous and definitely overall higher compared to the townhouse and semi-detached villas. And then we're having the segment of mansions. Now, mansions are very limited. We're speaking about less than 1% of overall properties in Dubai are categorized as mansions. And these are, for me, the typical trophy assets, same like the penthouses, which I mentioned. You will always find them as categorized ultra luxury. They are never cheap in itself. They are large, they are spacious, they are big, and they are gigantic if you want. So when it comes to the overall volume, what these kind of mansions bringing, this is a very unique product, and they are perfect for the goal of wealth preservation / money protection. So if you want to place your money into an asset which is never really decreasing in value because it's so limited, okay, but it just takes longer to resell them, that's why wealth preservation and money protection comes into the game. This is a perfect segment. By looking into the facts of the overall villa category, we directly see some crucial differences compared to the apartments, because the appreciation leader is definitely the standalone villa. Now, when we're targeting, let's say 7, 8, 9, 10% plus of capital growth, I directly would go into the segment of the villa. They definitely deserve the name and the title of capital appreciation leader. That is the reason because of two main factors: limited supply and land constraints. If you're not 100% aware of what that means, definitely go back into my channel Deals with Simon and watch the video where I'm breaking down everything about villas and mansions. I'm going very in depth, okay, and give you all the reasons why that is the case and the numbers behind it. This is number one. Number two is the yields. The rental yields, okay, are tendentially lower. I'm speaking about 4 to 6% on average for those kind of villas. But the good thing is here that the quality level of tenants is definitely higher. Why? Because they are more of long-term. So families who are part of a community and the kids play with other kids of these families, that builds a strong connection, a stronger bond, and that's why they tendentially stick longer in those kind of communities, okay? Now, when it comes to the resale window, that's definitely longer on average, okay? I just mentioned here 60 to 180 days. This is just like an average time window for those kind of standalone villas in the higher brackets, okay? In the 20, 30, 40 million dirham brackets until they're resold finally. When it comes to the entry tickets, definitely a higher cash concentration necessary, okay? So the entry ticket for a standalone villa, solid standalone villa, 10, 15 million dirhams. Okay, that's what we're talking about, 5-bedroom standalone villas. Ideally, if we can grab something with a basement nowadays, it gets even like into the 2025 when it comes to off-plan. When it comes to the investment timeline, I mentioned a very broad range of 3 to 10 years. And the reason being is I want to give my investor the ability to have a full value realization. That's in some cases only possible if you have a longer time horizon. So let's compare Palm Jebel Ali to the Acres Estates. The Acres Estates with roughly 200 units in the middle of 5, 6, 7 bedrooms. we will see earlier returns and earlier resales compared to the dimensions and the villas on the fronts of Palm Jebel Ali. Why? Because look at the location of and the connection basically of the acres estates, okay, or the acres is a master plan, which is right in between E311 and E611. That's where all the villas and already matured villa communities are right now compared to Palm Jebel Ali. Palm Jebel Ali is an incredible product, but it will definitely take more than 5 or 7 years till we see those resales with premiums of 50 to 100% because of the infrastructure which needs to build towards the area, okay? And last but not least is the fact that these types of products, they are less price volatile, okay? Reason being is because they're so limited in supply and they're basically controlled in price due to the community, the stability of it. And these are products which I definitely see ideal for long-term holds. So I never offer a villa which should be resold within the next 12 to 18 months because the overall villa community needs just time to mature and needs just time to get the max out of it. Coming on to category number 3, which are plots. And plots are super interesting and at the same time definitely not for everyone. Because I personally only see 3 main use cases why to acquire and own a parcel of land. Use case number 1 is definitely if you are about to build and customize your own unique dream home, then going for land acquisition is definitely the recommendation here. Number 2 is you are a boutique developer and you obviously need a parcel of land to build something. And number 3 is if you have the ability to buy a parcel of land without a grace period that you need to start building in a certain time window, then this is a very good option as well. So this is basically what I see as the 3 main use cases to actually go for land acquisition. Looking into the facts, you have definitely the highest upside potential when it comes to acquiring a land long term, okay? This is not something which you buy and resell in the next year. Makes absolutely no sense because the whole infrastructure till it is built takes time, and this is the main factor for the appreciation of a plot, actually, the infrastructure expansion, the infrastructure increase. 200 to 400% is just an example which I mentioned here, okay, and I'm emphasizing here on the plots in Dubai Hills Estate. These are the examples which I'm giving you in a second. This was number 1. Number 2 is the zero yield. If you are going for a plot, you are fully aware of the fact that there is no rental income, okay, until obviously something is built or you can use the plot in other ways. Number 3 is the dependency of the valuation in a way. So what I mean by that is the following. A plot can basically sit here for a long period of time and then suddenly overnight sells because someone wants to acquire this parcel of land and build their own customized mansion on it. Timeline. Timeline is definitely the longest of all 3 categories. I'm targeting here 5, 10 or even more years to own and keep on holding this particular parcel of land. Again, depending on the grace period, yeah? I'm going to create a separate video about plots where I'm explaining everything in detail. But grace period basically means if the developer is giving you a 3-year grace period, that most of the cases means that in those 3 years you need to start building the property on that parcel of land, okay? This is what I mean by that, but this is a topic for a separate video. So I'm speaking about long-term patience, okay, which should be a given here. Coming on to the outcome and key value drivers, here I'd like to emphasize a couple of points, how the valuation of such a plot is actually measured and what are the kind of elements that we're dependent on. So especially the master plan is very important to understand. Whenever there's an announcement of the overall master plan, that has an impact on the plots. The overall location of the plots and the position within that master plan / location is super important. If there is infrastructure going on, if there is a road access and the developer is progressing the development, these are all measurements how the land parcel gets more in value. And last but not least is super important to understand the costs, okay? Carrying costs. When you build your own development for construction, for materials and so on, there just should be a very specific calculation behind it before you acquire the actual land. And these are all factors which we can discuss in our private one-on-one consultation. And here I'd like to add one final note, which is so important for me to give it an understanding that the most profitable land deals, they are made and they are completed before the location actually matures, okay? So you will not make a huge profit on a land deal if you go in when the community is matured for 70, 80, 90%. It makes no sense, right? Because the value increase happens before the first construction of the first building starts. So this is just like the final mindset which you should be aware of when it comes to land acquisition. And as already mentioned earlier, I'm going to create a separate video where we go in depth, in detail about plots. But for now, let me just add one more visual element to give you a better understanding of how can we identify the actual numbers before acquiring these plots. There is the Dubai Development Authority out there, super helpful, the DDA. You can check the website on yourself as well, which shows us every single information about certain plots which are out there. And to give you a demonstration example, I just used the acres as a master plan here. So the acres master plan is exactly this parcel of land which I'm marking right now in yellow. And within the acres, we find the acres estates, okay? And we just choose a different one. So the acres estates are exactly these kind of clusters and rondels, okay? And each and every single plot which you find in there, so here, 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 okay, you get the idea, shows us the exact information if we click on that plot. So on the left side, we can now see the corner, the plot number, which is most important here. And then it's from the project the acres. Voila. Gonna change that here. It's not good. So plot number, then we see the project acres, then we see, for example, the community name, and most importantly here, the plot area. This is a 14,000 square foot plot, and it gives us a maximum GFA gross floor area of 7,000 square foot. And here we have the maximum height. It's a G+2 potential. So by clicking into one of these individual plots, we see every single information about the actual plot, and this is super important, super transparent. And as promised, I'm going to show you a couple of examples to demonstrate how massive the value increase of acquiring land in a very strategic location at the right time can be. And for that matter, we just dive into a DXP Interact report, which I downloaded myself, with all the registered transactions for plots for land of the last 36 months in Dubai Hills Estate. So here's the report. Dubai Hills Estate is the actual location. You can see it here on the top, which I'm marking myself in yellow. And it is the sales performance summary / the property sales history, which we can find here. And now let's dive into all the numbers. We can see literally every single important detail about the transaction that happened in terms of the plot. So let me make it a bit more visual, what kind of data we can find in front of us. On the right column, we find the specs, which basically means the total amount of plot size. Then the sold for just tells us the actual price the particular plot was sold for. Then we have the date, which is self-explanatory, and then on the left side we have the location / the sub-community of the Dubai Hills Estate. So let me give you an example. Emerald Hills, okay, the transaction was happening here in April, 13th of April 25. You can see that here, and the volume was 16.5 million dirhams. So the profit actually from this transaction to the last transaction was 281%, which is crazy. And you can see it was a 7,700 square foot plot. Now, what's really, really important is to understand this particular metric here, the price per square foot of the plot, which reached here 2,100 dirhams per square foot. Based on my market knowledge and based on the conversations which I had with experts of Dubai Hills Estate, they were selling roughly at 700, 800, 900 dirhams per square foot back in the days off plan, okay, which was a couple of years later back. And now what we find here is a price of 2,100, okay, 3,200, of 3,900, 1,600. Literally, there's no, other than a couple of exceptions, okay, which I'm not diving into too much, there's no plots which has not gone up in value, okay, in this matter of a couple of years. So this is quite impressive for me. This is quite interesting that we have plots reaching valuations of 4,200 dirhams per square foot, okay, and we can go all the way down to the first transaction, which shows us, I think in, when was it, in August, the 1st of August, okay, of 23, and even here we had a 106% increase, although the selling price was only, okay, 900 dirhams per square foot. So you can do your math on it if it tells 100% what was the actual original price of the first transaction from the developer for this particular plot. So this is quite impressive for me to see as a perfect example Dubai Hills Estate, especially with Fairway, Emerald Hills, Parkway, okay, these kind of sub-communities, what happened here in terms of the land acquisition. Incredible. Let's come to the final conclusion of this detailed breakdown and comparison of the apartment versus villa versus plot. And here you got your answer. There is no perfect property type. It completely depends on your unique requirements, on the target, on the objective, and obviously the overall strategy which we are putting together in our private one-on-one consultation. This is exactly my offer for you, because if you're watching my videos, then this is excellent. This is great in order to understand the market, to understand the possibilities and opportunities. But in order to take action and to really make those kind of investments which lead to extraordinary results, we need to discuss those kind of things in our private one-on-one consultation. This is exactly what I want to do right now. Click the link below this particular video, fill out the form, give me some upfront information. The more the better, because this is the way how I can prepare myself for the meeting. I will take 45 minutes of my time and consult you in the best possible way. With that being said, click the link below this particular video, fill out the form, see you on the other side, and I'll see you in Dubai.